So the soldiers will have the responsibility of making sure the woman was washed. How will they do it? They will fetch a water right at the center of the courtyard, wash the woman at the center of the courtyard, whilst all other ladies in the dungeons will look on. After that, she'll be dressed up, taken up through a point we call the private access to the governor's bed. Flight of stairs, secluded kind of point, and then you get to the governor. After the governor had raped you, you'll be brought back to the dungeons.
Hi lovely people, welcome back on another episode on Time with Julius. Today's topic is going to be very touching and sensitive because we're going to be talking about slavery. I personally believe every black person or every African should know your history. And if you're a white person and you don't understand black people, maybe you should watch this episode and you understand where we are coming from, what we've been through to get to where we are today. Recently, there's been a protest, meant to be protest, by turning to riot in the UK because people feel like immigrants are taking their jobs, immigrants are taking their women, are taking things from them. What you should ask yourself is how we ended up in your country in the first place. We were in our country, minding our business, and you came to our country, took every. You know what? When you are chanting about we are taking things from you, I've never heard anyone, no single person said we've taken your freedom from you, but you took our freedom from us. You took everything from us. Do you know what it means for your freedom to be taken from you? That's a question that I want all of us to ask ourselves. Today we've got Mr. Ato Eshon, all the way from Elmina Castle, to educate us about slavery. How are you doing, Mr. Ato?
Yeah, thank you. I'm doing so well.
How was your journey? Thank you so much. All the way from Cape Coast to, Accra.
That's right.
Just for us.
Mm-hmm.
We appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
All right. So my first question will be to you. Could you briefly explain to us how the origin of Elmina Castle and the purpose before the slave trade?
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. We know the Portuguese actually came down to Elmina in 1471.
Okay.
They came basically at the time to trade. The system of trade at the time was the barter system, so they were giving out goods for goods.
Okay.
When they were coming, they brought along guns, gunpowder, spirituous liquors, trinkets, among others. And they exchanged these for gold, ivory, litter, and the other spices. The one major thing the Portuguese were interested in was gold. Incidentally, the locals were giving them so much. So they came to believe that tower would be full of gold. And for that simple reason, they called this place Amina or Damina, meaning the mine in their language.
Okay.
So it was even this word that will not be pronounced properly, now corrupted to today's word, Elmina.
Okay.
Yeah. But many a times I want people to understand that it doesn't suggest we never had the name before they came. We did. And our name was Anum Ansa.
Anum
Ansa. Anum Ansa literally means that when you drink, it doesn't get finished or inexhaustible kind of water.
All right.
Okay. Then 1482, led by their captain called Don Diego de Azambuja.
Okay.
They came to see the chief of the time called Nana Kwamina Ansa. They negotiated for that plot of land and they had the castle built. It is said that the chief was not enthusiastic at the time, giving out the land to them, citing cultural differences to be a problem in the future. In fact, he went further to say that friends are better friends if they don't live together. Yeah.
Okay.
But upon persuasions and assurances, he gave in. And this would be the first time in the history of the world a West African chief would legally give out a plot of land to an European to have something built. The Portuguese will say to you there are two basic reasons why they built the structure. One, to trade. And then two, give out rooms for the missionaries who would come in to spread Christianity. And when they came at first, they were Catholics. So that's exactly the reason why the castle was built. First, to trade gold and ivory and others, and then also give out rooms for missionaries to come and, as it were, spread the word of God.
That's actually a very good intention they came in. So how did it turn into slavery?
Right. It is interesting to look at the linkage. Yes, we can see that, well, looking at the situation, they could have built it for the purpose for which they said they were going to do it. But if you look at what happened before they got there, it will be difficult for you to agree with what they were saying, because what they said was for record's sake.
Yeah.
Okay. We know that the Portuguese first captured people from West Africa in 1441.
Okay.
And these people, some say they took 10, others say they took 12. But these people they took initially was to serve as a proof that they've gotten to the black man's land and people really were living there.
Okay.
Now, they took these ones to Portugal for one simple reason, serving as a proof that we've been there. When they got to Portugal, the prince saw them and was happy for two reasons. One, some were to be educated to serve as interpreters for the Portuguese coming back to West Africa. And two, the most intelligent ones to be trained to become missionaries to help spread the word of God. But then sadly, when they got settled, they never came back as intended or planned. They rather ended up as slaves. And from that time, no other European came over here and went back without African captives. So it helps you to understand that they started taking Africans 30 years before they first got to Elmina. And 41 years later, the castle was built.
Okay.
And that's one of the reasons why most people believe the Portuguese never built it for gold and ivory and others, but also for human trade, because long before it was built, they were already taking Africans across. Yeah. But then they would also let you understand that those who were taken to Portugal and Spain were not treated the same way as Africans were being treated over here before they came, but almost the same. And then the religious ones would sadly say that, well, by taking the Africans there and making Christians out of us, they were then doing us a favor, because by that, supposedly, they save our souls and heaven comes in all that. But everything else changed when the Spaniards got to the so-called new discoveries. And they talk about the fact that not long after going there, silver and gold mines came up, plantations came up. Yes, they went to the wealth, but they were not ready to work the hard way. Yeah. So they subjected the natives to the work.
So let me take you back. When you say new discovery, what
that is the Americas.
Americans.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Just for the sake of the people.
That is it.
Okay.
But they were not really going to put themselves to the task itself. So they used the natives over there. But sadly, they could not stand the brutalities being meted out to them. The story suggests they were dying in numbers. So a priest, a Catholic missionary called Bartholomew de las Casas, looking at the sufferings of the people and the rate at which they were dying, suggested for the Africans to be used.
And which year was this?
We're talking about, that's about 15... 3:15:5 thereabout.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. But why would such a priest suggest for such a thing to happen? One school of thought suggests he said what he said based on the fact that we're already doing the same work under similar climatic conditions, therefore better substitute. But there is another school of thought that suggested that the man even said we never had souls. And that really got my attention. Because not long before this time, we had the souls they wanted to save. And then a few years later, we lost it. How did we lose it?
Yeah.
Because economics. Yeah. Now, economics will make you lose your soul. Okay. But even that, they wouldn't just say that, okay, bring them. At this time, they had quite a number back there in Spain. So they took some few from there. Some say to Hispaniola, others say to Santo Domingo, where they were tried. And true to the man's word, these ones proved physically fit. So then demands for Africans started coming in. And that will come as the beginning of that unfortunate story. The story of misery and pain. The story of the forced exodus of Africans from Africa to all these different countries we ended up. And this is what has become known as the transatlantic slave trade. So basically, that's how the whole thing got started.
So that's interesting, very, very interesting. So some people believe they knew what they were doing by building the Elmina Castle. Some people feel like they didn't. They actually had good intentions. But now, so they've built the castle, they had intention. Now, there's a demand for Black people, to develop the new world, which is the Americans. So what was the process with the slave trade after the demand of the Black people? What happened? What was next?
Okay. You must first come to understand that when they came at first, they were not going to talk to anybody to get anybody. They were capturing people themselves. Okay. One guy called Hugh Thomas said that they were gathering them to the ships as if they were cows or cattle. Okay. But then when they got to know that the Africans will fight back and some of them were dying, they needed to come to get a policy, a strategy where the Africans in themselves would help them in getting the people. So 3 ways basically came out. They had to get the Africans to go to war, and prisoners of war should be given out. And then we have those who commit certain offenses, they would also be given out. And those who would end up as pawns, given out to, as it were, pay for loans, would also be given out. So these were the 3 basic ways they started getting the people. But I believe that in the discussion, you would get to hear people say that Africans were giving their own people, their own brothers and sisters. And at times when you hear a statement like that, you like to tell them to shut up. Because why? They are not in the position to define for us who a brother or a sister could be at the time. I tell people today, Africans all over the world would see themselves as one, so they can call themselves brothers and sisters. But this mentality is recent. In the past, a brother or a sister was limited to a lineage, a tribe, or a kingdom. And beyond that, you were not soon to be one.
Consider you as
yeah. And those who were coming from the same groupings and saw themselves to be one, 99.99% cases never gave themselves out, but those of others. And these ones were not seen to be one. To think of a brother and a sister giving themselves out as if there wasn't any conscience. No. Yeah. So these were the 3 basic ways they got the people.
So there were division already among ourselves.
Of course. Even today, I tell people, if you've not been to Ghana for a long time and you've been here for some time, you see that all Ghanaians are united people. They are one people, very accommodating, hospitable, they say. Yeah, until we get to the elections. When we get to the elections, they were talking that these are Fanti, these are Evers, these are Santis and all that. Yeah, so it tells you that even in the 21st century, the cohesion is still not complete. To think of a brother and a sister back then in those days. No. Another thing that is also interesting to talk about is the fact that many people think that Africans were not doing anything about the situation. They just were just there. They could come for them anytime they wanted to. That wasn't the case. I tell people, if a whole community will build a wall, a fence wall to protect the entire community, so intricate a wall that if you're not part of it, you can't easily enter and come out. It doesn't suggest that they were not doing anything about the situation. If you go into the archaeological works that have been done recently, it makes you understand that the people had to move all the time because if you get settled at a place for a long time, the enemies will get to know your roots and they will come after you. So just when you get to know that they could come after you, you have to move. And they set traps behind them to kind of attack anybody or trap anybody who would like to come up to them. Recently, we are doing some works at Fort Amsterdam.
Okay.
And it has come to light that the people were not living under the hill. They were actually on the hill, because from there, they could see the enemy come and they would fight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So every part of the journey, the Africans fought. We never had the weapons to our advantage. We never had language to our advantage because they're speaking different languages. But in the midst of all that, we fought. We fought.
So when you say enemies, are you talking about the white people or are you talking about our own people?
Well, white people will be enemies, that's one. And then two, because the white themselves will not go to do that job and they will get people to help them do it. Those who came to help them do it were also seen to be enemies. Yeah, even today we have African people, but they could be African with the color of the skin, but they are puppets of the Europeans, and whatever they say is what they do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even in government, don't make a mistake about it.
I mean, this is why it's good to educate yourself, because me personally, I've always been thinking that what were our ancestors doing? How on earth would you sell your own people? When you hear this story, when we came over there and we heard the story about the room of no return.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is our own country. The castle is built in our country. How were our people going through that?
Yeah. Yes, they built the thing in your own country, that's true. But you didn't have the superior weapons to fight with. That's one. Two, you were not speaking the same language, therefore you cannot pull yourself together to fight. And because they were able to divide us among themselves, you see them to be the protector you have against other people coming to attack you. So these were the ways they managed to keep it going. So today they say divide and conquer.
Yeah.
But it started from there.
Mm.
For example, when you come to the Fante land like that, all the Fantes will see themselves to be one, except Elmina people. Elmina people, because of their involvement with the Asantes and also the Dutch, they were enemies of the British and the Fantes. Right. So then, even though they were on the same stretch, they were not Fantes. Today, when you go to the Asante Kingdom, for example, all the Fantes will have one chief representing them. And then, when it comes to Elmina, we would also have our chief representing us, because you're not part of the Fantes. And even the language we speak, incidentally, is not Fante. Many people don't know that.
Or the Emilites and the...
Yeah, we speak a bit of Creole of the Asante and the Fante.
All right.
A typical example is when a Fante will say, I'm going to eat, he will say, Merikizizi. When a Asante says, I'm going to eat, he will say, Mikodidi. When another guy is saying it, he picks the Miri from the Fante and Didi from Asante and put it together. So it become Merikididi. Yeah. Right. They think we don't know how to say Zizi. No, but that's our language. The Didi is our language. Yeah.
Okay. So the language was a barrier, was a big reason why, we couldn't come together.
That was one. But what could actually make it possible was the divisions. Yeah. For example, the Asantes, the Elmina people, the Dutch were kind of in alliance against the Fantes and the British. So that even though you speak the same, we can understand, like a dialect, we can understand each other. Mm-hmm. But because of my alliance or my affiliation, then you'll not be a brother or sister to me. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I wanted also to let you know that I said earlier that every stage we fought, and that's very true.
Okay.
We fought. If we had the fence walls built to protect the people, if we could go up the mountains to see the enemies and fight them, it means that we're not sitting idle. When you come to the castle, all the castles have what they call the condemned seal.
Right.
What will happen with the condemned seal? The condemned seal will be there to kill those who lead revolts in the dungeons, making you understand that even in the dungeons, in the midst of all the pain and the difficulty, we fought. If you get the Dutch records properly, you'll get to know that 2 out of every 10 ships, there will be a major revolt. Major revolt on the way going, major revolt. And I tell people the only reason why we couldn't get a lot of successes with the revolt on the way going was the fact that we never had the ability to man the ships after we had taken over. So then they recapture it and we are in trouble. When you get to the place where they took them to work, for example, talk of the Jamaica area there are a group of people called the Maroons. Maroons were those who will fight them on the plantations, and they will move up the hill and create their own society. A society so committed and so formidable that if you join them, if you ever enter, they have to protect you against anybody else who will come and fight you.
Right.
Yeah. And we'll go to Brazil, we have the Columbus, serving the same purposes as the Maroons. So every stage we fought. Every stage we fought. You know, there is a saying that until the lions get their own historian, the story of the hunt would always glorify the hunter. Yeah, that's the situation where we are in. Because we could not write our own achievements and write our own successes, we can only go what the Europeans say. But
I guess we had leaders at that time. What was their role in the slave trade?
A leader is not a leader if he doesn't have what it takes to protect himself and the people.
Okay.
You're not a leader.
Mm-hmm.
If a leader cannot stand against anybody coming to him, he's not a leader. He has to run, and then the people will follow him running. So if the leader doesn't want himself to be captured and that of his people, then you become an ally. Yes, so that's what happened. Yeah. Where would the leader be?
I get it.
Yeah.
Because one, we were not unite.
Yeah.
And obviously there's like, they were capturing from different places, you know, and then bringing them together.
Right.
How was the journey like for them, for the slave? Like, say if they captured them from the north, how do they get to like Elmina?
You have to walk as many months as you could.
Month.
They walked months, yeah. I mean, coming down from, for example, even Wa, for example, to Elmina. Imagine that distance, and you're not going to walk briskly because you don't have your legs to yourself. You are in shackles, so you only have to go slowly as possible. And the places where you don't have to walk, you have to cross rivers. And there is a book, Seed of Slavery, will tell you that even going across rivers, sometimes there were crocodiles and venomous stuff in there that would even attack the people. So it wasn't an easy journey. And if somebody also at a point felt a bit weak or like that, they would think that he wanted to pretend in order for him to be freed. They could tie you to a tree. Like that, yeah. So it was a torturous kind of journey to the castle. And especially coming to Elmina Castle, most of those who will come there will go through a Muscle, where it is considered to be the last bath. At this place, they would wash the people, shave off their hair, smear the body with oil for them to kind of look a little fresh, because the nicer or the nice looking the person will be, supposedly the better price they could get. Yeah. So they will walk from there to the castle. And I tell people that in the life of a captive, life never got better. It only got worse. So it was difficult walking from wherever captured to the castle. But come to the castle, they had to sleep in their own feces. You have to sleep in your wee.
Right.
I mean, you eat from the same place. And think of the women. You have to go through your menstrual periods and still be sleeping in it. And sadly, in the midst of all that, the governor had extreme desire to still sleep with them or rape them. So in Elmina Castle, there's a little balcony overlooking the females' courtyard where the governor stood, ordered the women out, and then made his choice. Those women chosen could have stayed in the dungeons for a whole month. Never cleaned her teeth, never took a bath or bathe, gone through periods, and still the governor was interested. So the soldiers will have the responsibility of making sure the woman was washed. How will they do it? They will fetch a water right at the center of the courtyard, wash the woman at the center of the courtyard, whilst all other ladies in the dungeons will look on. After that, she'll be dressed up, taken up through a point we call the private access to the governor's bed. Flight of stairs, secluded kind of point, and then you get to the governor. After the governor had raped you, you'll be brought back to the dungeons. Instances before you get back, you could be also be raped by other guys also, because you are the clean one at this time. Yeah. Some few became mistresses. They stayed longer. Some got pregnant and they were freed. And because they couldn't go back to where they came from, houses were built in town where those found pregnant were kept. And when they delivered, the kids were brought back to the castle and they were educated. You would think they wanted to educate them. No, that was not the point. They sold them to be those that would be able to get into the communities very easily, because they were half African, half European, mixed race. So the education was for them to know how to calculate, how to read and write, and then also how to have the fear of God in you. So religion, arithmetic, and then read and write. Yeah. So these ones were seen to be the outstretched arm of the Europeans and the African communities. But after the dungeon stories, after you've stayed there for a month, 2, 3, all these things I talked about, the ships will come for you to be taken away. Then you'll be put back in chains.
Okay.
The women will go through a point they call the females' exit. The men will go through what they call the transit dungeon. And together will meet at a point called the room of no return.
Okay.
Where they were given out to the boats. Yeah.
So the males and the females will both meet at the room of no return.
Yes.
Before they go out.
And you know, back then in those days, husbands and wives could be captured. In times of war, a whole family could be taken. Taken to the castle, they were separated. Women were taken up, the men were down. They couldn't see themselves. And at the time the ships had come and they had to leave, instances, people with the same kind of family links could see themselves. They couldn't talk to each other. So they kept on crying and crying as they moved to the room of no return. And so we have walked to the dungeon, very terrible. And I say to you that it was terrible, yes, but will not be compared to staying in the dungeons a month or two in all those kind of conditions they were in. But no matter how brutal it was in the dungeons, it was also better in the dungeons compared to the ships. Much worse.
Right.
Arrangement on the way going was more terrifying than the dungeon story would tell you. Spaces between this could be 25, 30, 35 inches high. People were made to lie side by side, unable to move and unable to sit up. Hands and legs in chains or in shackles. Some defecating, vomiting all over themselves.
So, briefly from what you just explained to us, what I've got from this conversation is they will capture them from their various places and they will walk months to get to Elmina. And the only time they had a bath was when they were preparing them to sell them. And also, the only time the woman had bath was when the
governor was going to pick one,
you know.
Here to rape.
I find that sickening.
Oh yeah, sure. In fact, when it comes to cleaning them before getting them to the castle to be sold, that was done at Manso. So the last bath would take about 50 kilometers to get to the Elmina Castle. So, yeah. But when they got to the castle, what water are you going to use to bath?
Right.
Well, they can only throw some water on you when you're about to get onto the ship. But right a month or two that you'll be in the dungeons, no taking a bath. That is why when the woman was chosen to be raped, and after the governor had had his way with her, other soldiers could take advantage of the situation. Yeah, sure. And it was not different also on the way going. Yeah. So I made mention of the fact that they were packed like sardines, excuse my language, yeah, on the way going. And there was this man called John Newton, who was accredited with the song Amazing Grace. Supposedly, he was not the one that created the melody of the song. He actually put in the lyrics of the song. Okay. And they say that the melody came from the chanters of the African people. So the cries, the howls of the people generated Amazing Grace. So this guy just put some words into that thing to become a song.
Just imagine the chants.
Yeah, of the people. And then he would say that he was comparing the arrangement of the captives on board the ships to books on shelves.
Okay.
And he said that they were so close, it would be difficult to add one more book.
Wow.
That's how John Newton described it. Another guy called Richard Drake, an Irish American, who was there, an eyewitness account. He said that on the 8th day out at sea, I went round the half deck, holding a camphor bag in the teeth, for the stench was hideous. I saw the sick and the dying chained together. He said, I saw pregnant women giving birth to babies whilst chained to corpses.
Oh my God.
Because the drunken overseers had not gone in to remove them.
Oh my God.
Africans were literally jammed between decks as if in a coffin. And in the coffin, in that dreadful hold, became to nearly 1/2 of our cargo before it reached Bahia in Brazil. Yeah, it was terrible. So many a times at the door of no return, I would let people keep a minute of silence in memory of all those who died in the process. And I tell people, why do I let you do it? Those who fought and they were killed, those who refused to eat and they died, those who jumped overboard and killed themselves, did what they did in protest. In other words, they protested with their lives. And those that survived the journey never survived only because they were strong. Of course, you should be physically, mentally, spiritually strong to go through all these and still survive. But that was not the only reason. They made up their minds to go through the pain, the shame, the degradation, so they could tell the story. Then I tell people also, there's one group of people that we don't normally talk about them. Imagine that woman whose only child is captured, and she's looking through the window hoping the child will return.
And one day.
Look at the man captured, named, the wife taken, and the wife calling on the man to do something. And the man is unable to do anything. Cast your mind back to look at children who, out of fear, are running deep into the forest, not knowing what was going to happen to them, and they ran to their own death. You think of all these ones, and you keep a minute of silence in their memory, and ensure that you will do what you can do to ensure that this evil never again repeat itself. It's important. It's very important. As an African, they make us understand that if you do not know your past, it is bound to be repeated. And I dare say that because you have not taken the time to go through this particular story carefully to understand what happened, leaders are doing virtually the very same thing that happened yesterday and perpetuating it one way or the other. And that is very difficult. I believe that every leader, no matter the position, whenever you are taken to that office, you must spend time in it. Come to the dungeon, spend time. Don't go come with protocol, police, and 15 minutes you are done. Take the time to go through it. Listen to it. Stay in the dungeons. Let them talk to you.
Feel it.
I believe that when you go through that process, you become a very good leader. I always talk about the former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan.
Yeah.
Before he assumed office, he was at a castle, and I was the guide. I was so blessed to be the guide at the time. I was a smallish boy standing in front of a big man like that. But I saw him nodding every time I said anything. And I was not surprised that his time was seen to be one of the greatest in the issues of UN Secretary General. Yeah, so it is important that we come over, have a look, listen to the story, let it form our opinions for us in dealing with the situations of leadership. Yeah.
Because talking about leadership now, that has brought my mind to the fact that I personally feel like we are still in slavery, just like the modern slavery, where our leaders rely on the Western world to make our country better. I believe we can't do it. They are of no good. They still have that mindset to me.
Yeah, but you remember, even the Bible says that the borrower is a slave to the lender. Huh? So as long as you continue to borrow, you have to go to the dictates of the lender, and so until we change, nothing will happen. And get this also. Until the people themselves get to know what happened to them, nothing will change. Because any leader that stands out to do what is right is killed by supposedly his own, by the influence of some people.
Yeah.
Just look at Kwame Nkrumah, what happened to him. The CIA was behind it. But who actually did the work? We did.
Yeah, our own people.
We did. Recently, talk of Tanzania, Magufuli. You can say anything you want to say. We know that he was also eliminated by who? His own people.
Yeah.
They will say that he drank water and water did what? That story of slavery and trade is the beginning of the woes of Africa. And to change the system, you must understand the system. So we have to go back to the basis.
Yeah.
It's important.
So the division that we spoke about earlier, that's still there. That's the reason why we are how we are today.
Of course.
Because we're not united.
Of course.
There's still division.
Look at Africa united. What do we need from the West?
Nothing.
Seriously. What do they need? They need everything from us.
From us. They need us more than we need them.
Absolutely.
Way more than we need them.
Yeah. And one thing also I think, especially African youth should also understand is that we like running away too much. Yeah.
Yeah.
You go to America. Have you seen any African Ghanaian? Let me not go Africa. Have you seen any Ghanaian arrested for espionage? Any Ghanaian at all?
No.
Why? We want comfortable life. We do not know that people had to sacrifice for that comfort to be. But we run away all the time. Chinese will go to America, start learning what they're doing. And they will be doing the same in their country. They will call Samsung, whatever it is. In no time, they have perfected the act. But when we go, say, I'm American now. See, in America, we don't do that. That's a very serious issue that we have to deal with. It's important. It's very important.
Yeah. Let's talk about the missionary, the hypocrisy of the missionaries. How were they preaching? Because I heard they had like a church upstairs where I believe the dungeon. How were they preaching the word of God? They were preaching love and doing slave trade at the same time.
All right. So basically, understand that the priest might have talked about it, but he will not be heard.
Okay.
Will not be heard. And the priest himself, I don't know whether they were really priests. They came from the beginning, they were doing evangelism. Immediately slavery and trade started, that stopped.
Okay.
Because who would you trust? Who would you trust? So he stopped. I tell people Christianity today started from the 1800s when Murat came to Elmina in the 1800s.
So that was after the
It was truly after the slave trade, because really there was nothing happening with slave trade. If you go through the story, for example, you know a man called Philip Kwaku. Philip Kwaku had opportunity to travel to UK to be educated as a missionary. When he came down to Ghana, he was a chaplain at the Cape Coast Castle. He died at the age of 75, I guess. But you know that he was even going to the market to get some stuff to eat. Because they would not pay him as a missionary. They would not pay him as a chaplain of the castle. Why? Because what he came to see was not consistent with the theology he had learned.
Yeah.
And so he was denied all the privileges. And he died at old age, miserable kind of death. So you get to know that at the time we were not actually into Christianity per se, but they were using the Bible, as it were, to help people tone down from fighting. Yeah. So it, in a way, became like a tool. But sincerely, it doesn't suggest Christianity in itself is a problem.
Okay.
It's not a problem. The only thing is that those who started it use it for the wrong purpose.
So Philip Kwaku had opportunity to travel to the Western world
There are three of them.
trained as
You don't
missionaries.
get taken.
Yeah.
Three of them.
And when he came back, he wasn't practicing what they were practicing, so they didn't really regard him as a missionary.
Absolutely. They were not going to give him the courtesies he needed to get,
Okay.
because he was supposed to preach to them that they would not listen to your preaching. Yeah, so, and they would not even give you the support to kind of live a reasonable life. So, come on. Yeah.
So at what point did slavery stop?
Well, in 1807, the English supposedly abolished it. But I tell people that was just official thing they did, just on paper, because in reality it continued. You should also know that at the time it was illegal for the English. It was legal for the Dutch and other people, until far later when the English had the right to ensure that it will come to an end. And don't think, basically, that they saw that it was evil and therefore they stopped it. No, never think like that, because that would be a trick. Yeah, they saw economically it was no more profitable.
Okay.
Well, yeah, sure, because now they are machines that will do the work the Africans were supposed to do. So now what we're going to do is this. They are coming over here will be useless. So let them stay there and produce the raw materials we need for our factories to work, so that we'll do the finished product and send it to them to buy. And from that time till today, time where we are doing, even value added is a problem. We still start the raw.
Yeah.
And we get the finished product from them. Nothing really has changed.
What we can produce, we can build our factories, we can produce it because we are providing the raw materials
Yes, sure.
that we can produce in our own country.
Yeah.
Even our gold, our own cocoa, our own diamonds.
Yeah.
Why?
It's a whole strategy they are still adopting. Because when they came away, they say, give us the gold. And they will take the gold and bring you trinkets to buy. Yeah, so.
But we are in 2024. Do our leaders do not know this? Why is it still happening?
The problem, I believe, would come from one particular source, okay? When the Africans in Africa don't see that their own ancestors went through the dungeon, it will not help you to connect with it.
Thank you.
And until you connect with it, you can bring about the change.
Yeah.
And today, the African diaspora also thinks that their ancestors went through it. And even some will go to the extent of saying that you sold them into slavery. And that is another problem. Another time we can talk about that.
Yeah.
A huge problem. So with that seed, there's always a division, ready to fight the Africans who you sold me to it and all that. But that wasn't really the case. And so we have to come to understand that we all are having one ancestry that went through the dungeon. And the problems of the West and the problems here should all be seen as one people fighting two common fronts. And when we do that, then the change will come.
So now they've left for their own reasons, not because they realize what they are doing to us is not good.
Some argued like that. Wilberforce, Granville Sharp suggested from the humanitarian point of view or from Christianity point of view, but truly it was economics that brought it to so-called end, because they wanted raw materials and other people to work.
So now we are free, but we're not free, basically.
Oh, you're not free. You have never been free. You're free to be your own, but you go to the dictates they give you. And in that case, you're not free. You're free is when you take the decisions yourself and pursue what makes you good. But when you can only do what they bid you to do, then you're not free. No, imagine you can decide to do something, but you have to go to them to approve that which you want to do. Come on.
Yes.
That will not make you free.
Yeah. Wow. So, let's talk about tourists. Now we've got Elmina Castle, which is the oldest castle
The oldest and the largest in terms of slave trade.
Yeah, and there's a lot of diaspora. There's a lot of people that come, to educate themselves. How do they usually react, and how do you help them process their emotions? Because when we came there, we saw like flowers. Some people bring flowers. Some people bring also like water and everything. To
It's a very difficult experience for African diaspora. I mean, why is it difficult? Because they connect with the story. They feel their people went through it. And I believe that if Ghanaians, if Africans also come to see that their own people went through it, their feeling will be the same. One thing about Ghanaians that sometimes is difficult on the tour is that they can even sort of crack joke or something like that. But then at the end, they will say that, Charlie, we don't have to allow these guys to come here. They will say that their reaction on the tour and their comments at the end were not much. Yeah. Because you see that they should be very angry even going through, but some don't. But when it comes to the African diaspora, they feel the pain, they share their emotions. Many at times they cry on the tour. There are times, especially Jamaicans would even want to fight. Yeah. So as a principle at the castle there, we do not normally allow African diaspora to go on a tour with the white people, because anything could happen in the middle of the tour.
It gets to that.
It gets to that. And even now also, we are even careful putting Ghanaians on the tour with the African diaspora. Right. Why? Because some of the comments they make trigger a lot of issues. Yeah.
For example,
the governor has elected everyone. At least she will take her bath. What do you mean by that? That's terrible. That's terrible. Yeah, that's terrible. So we're careful putting them together. And what we do to also help people go through the process is to let them understand that it's not about what happened yesterday. It's about what is happening today and what the future should hold for us as a people. For example, I tell people we will not be able to undo the past, but we can do something to affect the future. And how positively we make it happen will be our responsibility. I tell them something Martin Luther King Jr. said. Martin Luther King Jr. said that you have not started living until you could rise above the narrow confines of your own concerns to the broader concerns of humanity. So invariably suggested that don't look at your own situation, don't think the pain and everything, but go beyond yourself. And normally I would tell people what Marcus Mosaic Garvey will say. Marcus Garvey said that we may not all live to see the higher accomplishment of an African empire so powerful and strong as to compel the respect of all mankind, but in our lifetime, we can work and act to make that dream a possibility within another generation. So always bear in mind that the sacrifices of yesterday is what we are having today. And the sacrifice of today is what tomorrow will see. So as African people, we should look at tomorrow and act today, because tomorrow will depend on today.
You are the perfect person for me to ask this. You are the head of Elmina Castle. What are some of the challenges that you face, and do you get any support? How do you maintain the castle?
Well, I think the problem in the past had to do with the perceptions of people of the space, and then also the government's involvement with the space. But currently, I can tell you as a fact that the government has taken it upon itself to ensure that these facilities are well structured and maintained. So some monies had been given. It currently works. The architects are going around to ensure what we can do to really make sure that they are in good shape. So I can tell you for sure that in about 6 months' time, the castles and the forts will be standing strong, because we want the message to go out. One other difficulty we've had at the castle would be the youngsters coming to beg from the tourists. The
youngsters coming to what? Beg.
Yeah, because of beg for helps, kind of.
Okay.
The difficulty of that problem, the difficulty of it is this. The more they get the money, the more they don't want to go to school. And because the money seems to be big, they become a bit more boisterous in their activities, and then even driving them away becomes another problem. It's difficult to say this, but there are people I met at the castle when I started working way long ago. And today, some are drug addicts, very bad state.
Are you talking about the staff?
No, the boys coming around to beg.
Okay.
So, and the one generation will go, another generation will come. So it's something that as a people we need to work together to ensure that we stop that, because we deny them the opportunity for a future that they are wasting because $20 has come, $100 has come, and all that. So these are difficulties we need to work with. But I sincerely believe that the understanding of the space is now coming up. Yeah, and then very soon we would be working in a way to get everybody involved to ensure we get it moving the way it should move.
Okay, so you've put your measures in place.
Of course.
Yeah, that's good then. On average, how many people visit the Elmina Castle and the Cape Coast Castle? Because you cover both of them.
Yes. It is very funny. Prior to the coming of Obama, more people were coming to the Elmina Castle than the Cape Coast Castle, strangely. But when Obama came to Cape Coast had more people now than Elmina, because Obama has come there. Somebody will come to me and say, "Is it the one that Obama visited?" I said, "No, sir, I'm going to the one that Obama visited." So they had to leave to Cape Coast. So Elmina is a bit behind Cape Coast for now. Last year, for example, we had over 100,000 for Cape Coast, but Elmina was about 88,000 thereabout. But I'm sure that this year Elmina could also cross 100, whilst Cape Coast will move to about 150 to maybe 200,000.
Yeah.
And it's also interesting to learn that majority of people visiting the castle are not white people, are not the foreigners. Majority are Ghanaians.
Oh, really?
Yes.
No, the diaspora, no.
Yeah, no.
Oh, really?
Majority of them are Ghanaians. And also, interestingly, about 60% of those Ghanaians visited are students. So I believe that if we are able to tailor the message in a way they would understand properly, that we can create the anger in them for them to work hard, not to go fight, to work hard to see themselves coming together as a strong people.
Is there anything that you want us to talk about is there anything that you want us to talk about, that I didn't give you the opportunity to,
I think we've covered all, but I want especially Ghanaians to understand that the castle and the forts were not for the African diaspora and are not for the African diaspora. I mean, the story is our story. Yeah. And the only way we can take over is to understand what happened. No matter what you say, let me tell you this. The Europeans did one thing to Africa. They took away our independence and they created for us a dependency kind of syndrome. And they have nurtured that till today. Yeah, so until we understand the space and how it was organized, we will continue to be in the way they want us to be. So let's take hold of our story and let's work to change the dynamics for the betterment of all of us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I've learned a lot myself because there was a lot that, I was, wrong in my head.
Right.
So now that you've come and explained everything to us, just want to say thank you for your time and everything.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. Thank you guys for watching us, and I'm sure that you've learned something from this, and we should, again, sell our story. We should tell our story, because the story is us. No one else, but it's us. Our ancestors, our forefathers went through it for us. Thank you.